Hi guys, and welcome to Olivia's Catastrophe. I'm Olivia and I'm here to talk about the 15 books that I read in the month of June. I have a lot of new favourites, a lot of really good reads, and I can't wait to tell you about them. So the first book I'm very excited to tell you about, which is another new ultimate favourite, and that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. So this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and in this one Harper is the beauty and she has cerebral palsy, and she kind of gets kidnapped to break a curse that Ren will not tell her about. And Ren is there with his commander Grey, and there's not really much more I can tell you other than at the end of every season he turns into a monster and he cannot break this curse. It's pretty much your regular Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it's also going to be your best Beauty and the Beast retelling. I buddy read this one with Jade from Jaded Reader and we both absolutely loved it. It is so funny, it's got so much humour in it, but at the same time I can tell that this was a really well researched book and a lot of thought and hard work has gone into writing it. The writing style is lovely. Grey is the secondary character who is a guard and he completely stole my heart. I loved every moment, every minute of Grey in this book. I'm just a huge complete Grey fangirl. Harper was such a realistic main character, and the biggest thing about this book is that it's realistic all the way through. She tells it how it is, she takes no nonsense, and she figures things out. I just believed every minute of this retelling. There was a lot going down, the pacing never dragged, I was always enticed, I was always excited in the ending. The ending was amazing. I need the sequel right about now. Then the second book I have to tell you about was a little bit of a disappointment, and that is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is a hyped book on Booktube and it's set in this futuristic world where death has been conquered. So basically you reach a certain age and then you can wind back your body clock and you're young once again. But because of this invention, in order to keep population in control, there have to be these scythes who go around killing people as is their job. And in this one, these two kids, Rowan and Citra, get chosen to be scythes and it follows their apprenticeship. I'm not going to tell you more than that, but let me tell you my biggest problem with this book. The synopsis tells you more than that. The synopsis actually tells you what happens in the first 50% of the book, which makes that first 50% go very slowly as you know what's going to happen and you're more so just waiting for it to happen. I felt like the characters in this one were really flat. If you ask me about Citra and Rowan and their hobbies or their good friendships or anything about them outside of Scythedom, I couldn't tell you because they don't have any character building. And although the world and the concept is great, I felt like the plot was quite flat and boring for the most part. Things got solved a little bit too easily, and in my opinion it was I almost dropped the book. In my opinion it was quite unfair because I felt like Rowan got all the hard tasks and every hardship that happened in this book happened to him, while as Citra seemed to get it really easy. So I was just overall pretty disappointed in this book. And I want to say thank you to Madison from Madison Green for buddy reading this one with me. Next up we have Patron Saints of Nothing by Random Rebay, and this one came out at the end of June. I also have a longer review up on my blog and Goodreads and I'll leave a link to that down below. But I absolutely love this book, and again this is a new favourite of mine. So in this one we follow Jay. He is a Filipino American and he's just, you know, in his final year of secondary school. He's living his life when he gets news that his cousin Jun, who lives in the Philippines, is dead, and he is dead because of something involving drugs. So Jay and his cousin used to be pen pals. That stopped 4 years ago when Jun ran away from home, and he decides that because nobody's giving him satisfactory answers to what has happened, he's going to go to the Philippines and find out for himself. This book absolutely blew me away. It's based on a situation that is currently happening in the Philippines and has been happening for the past few years, which involves their president and a drug war and a whole load of violence and injustice that I knew absolutely nothing about. I like to consider myself a pretty informed person, but you know, things slip through the cracks and I did not know about this at all. It was quite eye-opening to me. It also dealt with Jay dealing with his cousin's grief in extensive detail, and I felt like that was done really well and handled very sensitively as well. The writing was really beautiful, and by the end of the book I felt informed, I felt emotional, and I feel like there was just so much this book brought to the table. It's also own voices and has some LGBT plus representation, which was great because I read this one in Pride Month. Moving swiftly on, we have The Stormcrow by Kaylin Josephson, and this one comes out in July, so you'll be able to get it soon. I'm on the blog tour, so I was given a copy to read and review, so I decided to read it ahead of time. And this one follows our main character. She is a princess in this royal world, in the royal family, in her world, and they live among these crows who have these magical powers and help make sure everything runs the way it should do. However, a neighbouring kingdom comes into the country and invades, and they kill all of the Stormcrows and imprisons basically her city and is trying to take it over. So the princess, after this has happened, she's lost some things in the big battle. She's feeling depressed at the moment, and she's just struggling to fight this oppression that is being forced on her people, but she decides it's time to step up the game, and finding one last Stormcrow egg could be helpful with this. So I read this one, like literally finished it today, which is June 30th, and I really did enjoy it. I think that the world building was extensively done and so creatively done, and I also really liked the characters. They felt very realistic to me, and I especially appreciated seeing a princess who had depression and was struggling with that, all the while that she was trying to fight and be strong for her kingdom. I do have to say that I felt like the depression representation was just okay. I can't comment on it entirely because I am not someone who has struggled with depression in the past or at the moment, but I felt like from other books that I've read that featured depression that I know have done it right, from reading Own Voices reviews, I think the depression representation, especially the beginning, could have been better, but I feel like it gets better as it goes along. I feel like she created some very complex characters here and did it very well. Some of the secondary characters have LGBT plus representation, which is again great for Pride Month. That was this month, but I wouldn't pick it up based on I'm looking for an LGBT plus book, if you get what I mean. I feel like, yeah, the world building was great, the plot was really good, and I found it very extensive. Strong characters, strong plot, strong world building. I approve, I really approve, and I'll have a full review of this one coming out on my blog soon if you want more like coherent thoughts. I find it very hard to give my thoughts right after finishing a book. Then I tried to read 2 books particularly for Pride, and I chose an MM romance because I usually read those, and then I also chose an FF romance because I rarely ever read those, so I wanted to kind of read a bit out of my books. So first of all, the MM romance was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I've previously read Scythe and absolutely adored it, so I thought it was about time that I got to her other book. This is her debut novel, and it's the story of Achilles, but in this one we're following from the perspective of Patroclus, and Patroclus and Achilles are in a relationship, and that's pretty much all you need to know. It involves Achilles' story and going on this 10-year war that happens in Troy and the outcome of all of that. So reading this one, I knew how it had to end because I know the mythology, but I really appreciated what Madeline Miller did with this story. When I was reading it, the writing style was extensively beautiful. The way that she changed some of the mythology, but not all of the mythology, was handled spectacularly, and I love seeing the way she made changes and squeezed it in as someone who knew the mythology. And I also thought the romance was so believable and so beautiful and so heartwarming. It started from when they were kids, and even though this is such a character-driven novel that it could get boring at points, like potentially a book like this should have got boring at some point, I don't think it did. I think maybe the pacing dragged a little bit during the 10-year war, but what can you do about that? And I felt like the ending was really good. I think it went to show how much war changes people and war can really impact your mind. And I thought I just think it was spectacularly done. It wasn't better than Circe. I still liked it. By the end of it, I had problems with a certain character, but that's how it goes, I guess. And I forgot to say thank you to Abby from Abby Mac Reads for buddy reading this with me. And then for FF romance, I read We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, and this one is about Marin. She is staying at her university dorm rooms for the Christmas holidays by herself, and she's getting a visit from her best friend back home called Mabel, and they've been best friends for a while, but things have turned a little bit sour, and you get to find out why as you go through this book and all the things that Marin has ran away from home for. So We Are Okay was a book that really struck me deep. It really did a good job of dealing with some very extensive themes, like themes of kindness, themes of loneliness, and themes of grief. I think all of those were handled wonderfully in this book. The writing kind of felt like a slice of life story, but it wasn't entirely a slice of life story. Maybe just typical contemporary and I'm just being too complex. But it was a really like slow moving, drawing you in writing style. The characters were done so well. I really was satisfied with where the romantic storyline went at the end of this book. And yeah, it was very atmospheric and I feel like those themes hit home for me. And I want to say thank you to Eggley Wrights for reading this one with me. I did a lot of buddy reads this month. Then we've got The Tattooist of Our Switch by Heather Morris, and while this one is not a new favourite, I do want you to know I rated it 5 stars because this was absolutely brilliant. I read this book in a single day. I went to see Rachel Marie in Rotterdam from Rachel Marie Reads, so I'll link her channel down below, and on the train there and on the train back I started and finished this magnificent book. It's creative non-fiction and it's telling the story of Lally Sokolov, who was someone who was the tattooist, as the title says, in Auschwitz, and this book just follows along his life. Kind of on his way there is when we get to meet him, and then the end is the end of the story. And I feel like this book did a very good job of portraying both the happy moments and the sad moments, because you know when it comes to any Holocaust story there are some horrific things that were done to people in just with no excuse, and it was just absolutely a hateful time, a horrible time, and such a difficult time for a lot of people to live through. And Lally's story is not different from that. So there are horrifying moments, there are terribly sad moments, but at the same time he does fall in love, and there's some romantic moments, there's some lovely moments, and there's happy moments even within all this suffering, which just makes everything hit home all the more. The writing style felt a little bit distancing from the character, but I kind of needed that because if I didn't have that kind of writing style I would have been sobbing in the train in front of everyone. So I'm kind of glad that it had a bit of that distance to it. It's also very interesting because Lally is very honest in this book. He's not trying to portray himself as a hero. He admits that he had to do some things to get by, and I just feel like it is an emotional whirlwind and you kind of need to read it yourself, and please do. And then I buddy read with the Travelling Bookworm, so I'll leave a link to her account down below as well. I read Library of Souls by Ransom Riggs. This is the 3rd book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. I thought it was going to be the last one, but it isn't. But it is where I'm going to jump off the train and stop reading the books, because while this one was good, it still wasn't great, and I'm kind of done with reading good but not great books and continuing the series just for the sake of continuing. So if you don't know, the first one is about this boy called Jacob, and he goes and stumbles across this time loop where these children with peculiar powers live within it, and these children are trying to fight the Holocaust and the Hallows, who are kind of attacking the peculiars with their own intentions and goals in mind. It's quite a long book even though it doesn't look like it, but this one, although it had good atmosphere, although the storyline was pretty good, by the way the author very cleverly covers up a lot of plot holes in this one, and everything really ties together so nicely, and I really appreciated that because I felt like the plot in the second one was meandering and kind of losing the point, but in this one it kind of picked it all up, picked up the pieces and put it back together again. And I did like the characters. I kind of liked that we had fewer characters that we were focusing on in this one, but it doesn't deny the fact that a lot of the times I found this book to be slow paced. It doesn't deny the fact that the love story in this one still completely creeps me out, and I feel like the ending was a little bit unrealistic. But other than that, these aren't bad books, they're decent, but I'm just not looking for just decent books. I want to be blown away. So then I want to talk about Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. I did it. I finished Harry Potter. I finished the series and I'm never going back. So I've been rating the previous books 2 stars, and I don't usually tell you guys my ratings, but I did want you to know that I rated this one 3 stars, so me and Harry Potter didn't end off on a bad foot. This one I listened to an audiobook. Thank you so much to Stephen Fry for reading the audiobook, because he like blesses your ears with this audiobook. And I found this one to be very good at the beginning. It started with action, it started with energy, it started with high stakes, and then it dragged and it got so slow paced. Even at the end when we're getting some great big battles going on, in the middle of those battles, J.K. Rowling was like, hang on, hold on, pause up, we need a break so I can put in some more information and then we can get back to the fighting. And I was like, why are you ruining the pacing? But other than terrible pacing and just mediocre characters, the plot was decent and the beginning was great, so I'm just gonna give it like 3 stars because some things were good, a lot of things weren't good, but it wasn't terrible and I liked it more than the other ones. Then we're going to talk about my second audiobook that I read, which is a non-fiction read, and that is Becoming by Michelle Obama. I finally did it. I listened to this audiobook and I really enjoyed it. So to be honest, I don't know that much about American presidency. I feel like I know enough to understand the policies they're making, what that means for Americans, the laws and stuff, but I never really took a time to like be a fan of the president or really look into what they're doing, because I feel like I'm bombarded with American news all the time. So if I am going to be looking up news, I want to kind of look around America to other countries instead of the country that kind of just gets put to the forefront the most. So to be honest, I didn't know much about presidency, what that position includes or anything, but this book kind of taught me a lot about that. But not only that, Michelle is very feminist. Michelle is a mother and she really cares about her children, and I love the focus on motherhood and family here. We get to hear more about her past and how it made her who she was. I found it very lovely that this audiobook kind of showed her past, and when it showed her past you could see how her past contributed to her making the choices she does in the future. And I also really feel like it did a good job of talking about race and being in a political game and the pressure that you have to deal with. Basically, Michelle is a queen, and reading this book you get to see how much she's a queen, and I just really appreciated reading this non-fiction read. Highly recommend it. And then the last one that I want to talk about that I don't have with me here is Blackbird. And oh my gosh, I don't remember the author. I had a physical copy of this one and I've already unhauled it. It was my 2-star read this month and I didn't really like this manga. I don't know what younger me was thinking when she picked it up, because it is so explicit, but it's not so explicit, but it's kind of like too explicit for 13-year-old me. Anyway, so this one is about this girl and she had this like childhood crush when she was younger and he left her, but he's back now and she's like 16 or 17, and it turns out she's supposed to be this really powerful bride, and whichever demon marries this bride is going to have like very big power and wealth, and their guild is going to be super strong. So all these demons are trying to either kill her or date her, and he comes back and he's got competition this time as well, even though he thought that she was going to be his bride. And every time she gets injured he does this like weird thing and it's really sexual and it just wasn't good. Also the gender dynamic in this was really bad. Like he was always like, I own you, and she kept saying no, and he kind of kept assaulting her, and I was just like, that's not how you court someone. No, please stop and thank you. So I just kissed goodbye to that book. Then I want to talk about the poetry collection I read this month, and that was One Last Cigarette by Mary Stone Dockery. I'm quite sad to read this one because there are no more Mary Stone Dockery poetry collections that I can purchase and read anymore, because she's kind of not printing her books, I don't think. She's a small press published poet and she writes about different themes. This one seemed to have a very gritty feel to it, so think dark themes, think grief, think breakups, think relationships. I say dark themes and then I put relationships. But anyway, the poetry in this is absolutely beautiful. She's such a brilliant writer. And then last but not least, I need to talk about William Shakespeare's Star Wars by Ian Dusha. So I read the first 3 books, which are actually episodes 4, 5 and 6, because we all know those are the first Star Wars movies. So we've got William Shakespeare's Star Wars, we've got The Empire Striketh Back, and we've got The Jedi Doth Return. And in these ones it's basically Star Wars but then written as Shakespeare plays in Shakespearean language. Ian Dusha is completely creative with these. The illustrations are absolutely gorgeous. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so reading these just entertained me so much. And because I know the exact lines that they say in the movie, when I was reading this I could see how he had adapted those lines into Shakespearean English, and it made me laugh so much. But at the same time, Star Wars really lends itself to Shakespeare. Like, people fit in the roles, like the usual role of the fool kind of goes to CP3O, and then you've got the like hero role. You've got like one of these plays reads like a tragedy because the movie is quite tragic, and it all just fits in so well and makes perfect sense. I'm so happy that I got to read these 3 plays because I love them and I can't wait to read more. And there you have it, guys. Those are the 15 books that I read in the month of June. Please let me know in the comment section down below what was your favourite read in the month of June, and yeah, what are you planning to read in July? Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't you forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.